I want to talk about David, Solomon, and Absalom because they are case studies in how not to deal with pain in your life. They dealt with it in 3 different ways that are all wrong. David medicated his pain. And this is one of the things that we do. When we don't deal with pain properly, we medicate it. Not everyone medicates, but a lot of people do. Sex, food, drugs, alcohol, gambling, all those things are just ways that we can make the pain go away for the period of time that we're doing those things. And in David's case, David had sex problems. He did. He had many wives. And one day he saw Bathsheba, another man's wife, and he took her to be with him and then killed her husband to cover it up. He had issues. And we know that David had pain. And you say, well, what was David's pain? Remember, Samuel the prophet was told by God to go to Jesse's house and to anoint a king. David was the 8th son of Jesse, the youngest son of Jesse. And when Samuel the prophet came to Jesse's house, David was the only son that he did not bring before Samuel, but he left him in the sheep pen. And when all the other brothers had come before Samuel, Samuel said, none of these are the guy. Do you have another son? He said, well, there's David. His father didn't believe in him. And being the youngest of 8, he probably didn't get much of his father. And so David had this pain in his life that he was medicating. And let me say this about medicating or addictive behavior, because that's really what it is the issue is never the issue. When you're dealing with alcoholism or drug addiction or food addiction or gambling addictions or sex addictions or anything, the issue is never the issue. To an alcoholic, alcohol is not the issue, pain's the issue. We're dealing with pain. And when a person goes to Alcoholics Anonymous, and they've helped millions of people break alcohol addictions, but when you go to Alcoholics Anonymous and they have their 12 steps, the first step is fess up. Start talking about that thing you won't talk about. See, every time there's pain in our life, the devil puts fear and shame around it, so we'll keep it in the darkness. Fear and shame. We don't want to talk about it. It hurts too much. We're too ashamed of it or whatever. But understand this, anything in the darkness is in the devil's domain because he's the prince of darkness. Whatever is in the light belongs to God because he's the God of all light. So the devil's greatest interest in our lives is to keep pain there by putting fear and shame or whatever it is upon that thing, or just secrecy. The hallmark of every dysfunctional family is secrecy and not talking. But functional families talk and they process things and they get things out into the light. So you go to Alcoholics Anonymous and they say fess up, and they have these t-shirts that say denial is not a river in Egypt. Because almost every alcoholic lives in denial. Drug addicts, whatever it is. You're not dealing with your pain, you're living in denial, and you're medicating. And every moment that I'm under the effects of the alcohol or the drugs or the gambling or the shopping or the food or whatever it is, during that period of time, the pain goes away. But as soon as I finish, it comes back. Because you didn't solve it. You just medicated it for that period of time. The second son I want to talk about here, the other person is Solomon. He motivated his pain. Solomon was a workaholic. He was the ultimate overachiever. He built the greatest nation in the history of the world, and he was the richest man in the history of the world. There's never ever been a man that could rival Solomon. He owned so much gold that silver had no value whatsoever. And he built and did and built and did and built and did to motivate his pain through workaholism. You say, well, what was Solomon's pain? Well, first of all, he was the son of David and Bathsheba. His father killed his mother's former husband. He would have made the National Enquirer every week. He was the son of a scandal. He killed his brother to become king. Solomon had to kill his brother to ascend to the throne, and Solomon watched his brother Absalom try to kill his father. And those are just a few of the little highlights of David's family. It was a family of pain, and so to deal with his pain, he built and built and built and did and did and did, and it wasn't healthy. And this is what he writes about it in Ecclesiastes 2. I became great and excelled more than all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not withhold from them. I did not withhold my heart from any pleasure, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my reward from all my labor. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had done, and on all the labor in which I had toiled, and indeed all was vanity in grasping for the wind. There was no profit under the sun. See, when you're in pain, one of the ways that you can deal with pain is just, you turn the radio on, you turn the TV on, you're with somebody, you're doing something. You're always busy because when you stop, the ghosts show up. And they start talking to you about your past. And this was one of the ways that I dealt with pain. I've never been corrected by an employer. I've always been promoted. I've always been, blessed by employers and things like that because of how hard I worked. But a lot of it was sickness. It really wasn't. Diligence is a wonderful blessing. I was not diligent, I was driven. And I couldn't stop. Because when I stopped, the ghost showed up. When I became a Christian, and even when I had my quiet times, I could read my Bible and pray. I could spend time with God as long as it wasn't silence. Because God, you know that book, Boundaries? That it's a great book for people to read. I don't think God's ever read that book. God will put his finger right in the middle of your cereal bowl and stir. He's God, he owns us, and he wants to talk about what he wants to talk about. And he doesn't talk surface stuff, the weather, sports, what'd you kill last weekend, that kind of stuff. He goes right to the heart of the matter: abuse, anger, bitterness, hurt, betrayal. He wants to talk about what's really on our hearts. And as a young believer, I was afraid. I loved the Lord, but I was afraid of those moments of silence because I knew in those moments I was vulnerable because God was wanting to talk to me about some things I didn't want to talk about. They hurt too much. There was too much shame there. The devastation of certain events in my childhood. And let me tell you about the silly thing about hiding from God. You're hiding from your healer. When he touches pain, it doesn't hurt. When he touches pain, it goes away. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, I'll give you rest, for I am gentle and humble, and you'll find rest for your soul." See, when you're hurting, your worst nightmare is somebody jabbing at it. He doesn't jab. He's very gentle. And he touches. The Bible says that a bruised reed he will not break, and a dimly burning wick he will not extinguish until he leads justice to victory. And that means if you're the most shattered, broken life in the world, he will not deal with you roughly or disrespectfully. He understands. And he's a healer. And he'll take the devastation of your life and touch it gently and heal it. He's the only person who can heal the wounds of our past. And I want to say, in those moments when I wouldn't be silent and let the Lord deal with me, I continued to hurt, and I just went and did, always busy, until the day I sat in the presence of God finally and let him begin to deal with the issues of my life. But a lot of people motivate their pain. They just can't be quiet. They can't be alone. They can't stop. Absalom was another example, another son of David. He meditated his pain. You say, well, what was his pain? Amnon, his half-brother was Amnon. Absalom's half-brother was Amnon. His sister was Tamar, and his half-brother Amnon violated his sister Tamar in a horrible way, and David did nothing about it. David did nothing. He was silent for 2 years, and Absalom just sat there and stewed on it for 2 years. After 2 years, he killed Amnon in revenge. And then he fled, and then years later, David did nothing. David then brought him back finally after many years, but David wouldn't talk to him. And after many years of just sitting and stewing on his hurts and his offenses and his anger, Absalom tried to kill his father. There are people that they get hurt and they get mad and they just stew on it. They're cynical, bitter, angry, hate-filled. When you're hurt, you have to make a choice. You have to deal with it, good or bad. And we have to make a choice of how we're going to deal with it. And those are the three main ways that people deal with pain. They medicate it, they motivate it, or they meditate it.
Thank you for watching Marriage Today with Jimmy and Karen. Support Marriage Today with your best gift and receive the series, The Hurt Pocket. Become a rock-solid partner today and equip yourself with the tools you need for a successful marriage. $14, $28, or $56 per month. Choose the partnership level that's right for you. Become a rock-solid partner today.